right, so we have let the dough chill for about 24 hours. It is the next day. Now we're gonna jump into the more fun part of this process. We're gonna start cooking the pie filling. It's pretty straightforward. You're gonna mix together all of the dry ingredients, then mix all the wet ingredients with each other, and then we'll combine both of them. We're gonna start off by cutting the pumpkin, just so that we can get that cooking in the oven, and then we'll start mixing all of the dry ingredients. All right, so what I like to do is cut out the top of the pumpkin and then cut it into quarters. There are many different methods to use. You can go ahead and cut it straight down. You can even cut through the stem and cut it into quarters. You can cut it just in half. I'm just gonna show you how I do it. For me, it's the easiest, but you can figure out what works best for you along the way. It's also good to kind of go in at a 45-degree angle. That way you can take the top off a little bit easier. If you're using my method, you may want to make sure you have an adult with you. Okay, so now that we have butchered the top of the pumpkin, it comes straight off. And then you have these beautiful little ugly seeds. And as you can see, we have a napkin on under this cutting board. So if you have kind of a slick surface like this, it's nice to keep a napkin under here so that your cutting board is not moving back and forth, because that is dangerous. So now we will cut it into fourths. So a lot of people like to cut their pumpkins in half, which is totally fine. You can do that as well. You're gonna get a faster cook cutting these into fourths. And it also gives a little bit more browning around more surfaces. I like a little bit more of a smoky taste to my pumpkin pie. So do with that information what you will. Next, you're going to scoop out all the guts. You can also save these seeds. So a little side note, all you have to do is wash the seeds, dry them, spread them out in a pan, throw some olive oil on there, pepper, salt, paprika, lemon pepper, whatever you want. Cook them at 450 for like 15 minutes and you have a little snack, a little go-to snack. So yeah, little pro tip, keep the seeds if you want. And now we're going to scoop out the guts. For this part, it's not a huge deal that you make it perfectly clean. You just kind of want to get all of the dark stringy parts out of here. Because as you scrape down more, pumpkin naturally is a bit stringy. So if you are super OCD, you will be scraping the strings until you get to the skin. So I've just finished scraping all the guts out of the pumpkin. You're gonna want it to look like this. It's okay to still have a little bit of dark orange in there, but you're gonna want majority of the guts to be out. You're gonna want to have preheated your oven to about 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and these bad boys are gonna go in for 25 minutes. So I'm using parchment paper here, but it's totally fine to spray it down with some olive oil. You can also pour olive oil all over the pumpkins before you cook. Make sure to make it aesthetically pleasing. Should I make a smiley face? So we're gonna stick these into the oven for about 25 minutes, like I said, at 450 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, and we've got our pumpkin pie, little smiley face still. So as you can see, it's a little bit browned on the edges right here, and that is exactly how I like it. So what you're gonna wanna do to check and make sure that your pumpkin is ready is stick a little skewer inside and make sure that it's nice and soft. You can definitely use a fork as well. That is totally fine. It's also going to be good to poke a few holes into your pumpkin and let it sit for about 15 minutes to let it cool down a little bit before you go on to your next step. So now that this has chilled for about 15 minutes, we're gonna go ahead and peel it. And I've got a spoon here just in case there are any tough parts that need to be scraped off. And I don't actually know why I told you to bring a spoon, because if they're cooked like this, the skin is gonna peel off very easily. So don't worry about that. All right, so the next step is going to be pureeing the pumpkin. So, as you can see, there is no top on here. Since the pumpkin is so hot, we don't want this to burst or anything like that. So it's much better to leave a little air hole in the top and put some cloth here to let the steam out if necessary. So there are a lot of recipes that call for a draining of this pumpkin. However, if you cook it like I told you to, and you don't put water during this stage, I don't believe it's necessary. My pumpkin pie has come out pretty good every time. I've never had to drain it. You just want to make sure that all the chunks are out. It doesn't have to be completely smooth. This is a good consistency for it. So a lot of it's going to break down in the oven while it's baking. So just make sure it's looking nice. And this is what nice looks like. All right, so now we're going to mix together all of our dry ingredients. We've got cardamom, flour, nutmeg, cloves, brown sugar, and regular white sugar. So here I have the whole seasonings. I'm gonna grind them up with the mortar and pestle, but you can definitely use already ground seasonings. So we're gonna go ahead and get these all ground up. And we're back. So we've got all of the ingredients ground up, and all that's left to do for these is to pour them in the bowl and mix them up. We have the cloves, we've got the nutmeg, our flour, my favorite ingredient, the cardamom, we've got the brown sugar, and now you just mix them all together, and it smells amazing. With mine, there's a lot of chunks. I don't really worry too much about that right now. I like to get the bigger chunks out and spread around, but once you mix it into the wet ingredients, they'll dissolve for the most part. But after mixing it into the wet ingredients, be sure to get all the clumps out, or somebody will be getting a big bite of brown sugar. Could be a good, could be a bad surprise. You don't want to take that chance. So now we're going to mix all of the wet ingredients together in a separate bowl. We're going to start off with 3 eggs. You're going to use 2 whole eggs and the whites of a 3rd egg. For the 3rd one, when you get just the yolk out, there are specific tools that you can use that are specifically made to separate the yolk and the whites. However, you can just use a spoon, which is what I'm going to do today. So there are different methods for separating the whites versus the yolk. If you want the whites, you can kind of separate it over the mixture. If you want just the yolk, you're gonna want to separate it in a different bowl. And you can actually just use the 2 shells to separate them, but I'm going to pour it into a spoon today. And you can just kind of shake the spoon around until you've got the whites out. All right, and then we've got the yolk. And then for this mixture, again, I like to beat it at every step. in order to take it from here to here, you simply peel off this dry part of it, and then you can use your basic cheese grater to grate this down. You're gonna want it in very small bits like this. So, pro tip, do not drop your ginger into the eggs. This bowl has been sanitized, by the way, so I'm not going to replace the eggs, but I did wipe the bowl off. This is the ground ginger I will be using. I'm gonna get half a teaspoon of it. So like I was saying, you're gonna peel the dry skin off of the fresh ginger and then grate it. Make sure it's pretty fine. You do not want your guests, your family, whoever is going to be enjoying this pie, to take a bite and just get a big, overwhelming taste of ginger. I mean, I like ginger. I enjoy that. Most people don't. So be wary. Our next wet ingredient is going to be 14 ounces of condensed milk. And this might just be my favorite ingredient after the cardamom. Y'all, if you have never stuck your finger on the spoon of the condensed milk after your mom's been baking, I don't know if you've truly lived. I don't know. I really don't. You want to make sure to get every drop of this. I'm not kidding you. This is serious. This is very serious. This is the fate of your pumpkin pie. All right, so get as much out of there as you can and save the rest for a snack if you're unhealthy like me. And our last wet ingredient is actually gonna be this beautiful Tahitian vanilla. We're going to use 1 teaspoon of this vanilla. And I actually just brought this cup out to be extra, so bear with me. You know what? If your vanilla overflows a little bit, it is what it is. I also actually lied because this is the last wet ingredient. It is the most important one, so don't forget it, like I did. You're gonna need 2 cups of the puree. So you're gonna wanna make sure that all of the air is pressed out because it's really easy to form air pockets in your measuring cup. So be sure not to miss that. All right, here's 1 cup. All right, and here's cup number 2. All right, so you're probably going to have some leftover pumpkin puree. I like to measure out 2 cups each and put them into little Ziploc baggies or whatever type of containers you like to use, just until I run out of the puree. And then I like to store them in the fridge for the next pie I'm gonna make. So now that we've got all of the wet ingredients mixed together, we're going to slowly pour in the dry ingredients to make sure everything combines well. One of my favorite memories for cooking pumpkin pie was with my grandma. One Thanksgiving, each of us were making our special pies. Mine, obviously, being the pumpkin pie. And everybody made their pies first. So I was left to make my pumpkin pie at 1 a.m. the night before Thanksgiving. So I'm in my grandma's kitchen, right? My pumpkin has cooked. I'm taking it out, peeling the skin off, as you do. And then I go to find her blender. My sweet old grandma is so old-fashioned that she's just got a little puree machine that holds about 2 cups at a time. Your girl had a lot of pumpkin to puree. I'm in the kitchen, 1 a.m., pureeing a carving pumpkin, 2 cups at a time. And my grandma comes in, says, "What are you doing?" I explain everything to her. She's like, "Oh my God, you're crazy, but let me help you." So she pulls up a little wooden stool, has no back to it, just sits down and helps me to finish pureeing all of my pumpkin. Yeah, that's the sweetest memory I have of making pumpkin pie. Not something I recommend. Preferably, you can make your pumpkin pie at like 2 p.m., stress-free. But if you must, I know from experience, 1 a.m. pumpkin pies, they still taste good. And this is gonna be the color and the texture of how your pumpkin pie filling should look after everything is done. So now we're going to roll the dough out. Make sure that you spray your pie pan with some form of baking spray or olive oil spray, just so that it won't stick. And you're gonna need a little bit of flour again, just to put on your roller, because we don't want the dough to stick to your roller as you're flattening it out. And you might want to spread a little bit out here as well, just so that it doesn't stick. Okay, so what you're gonna do now to get it onto the pie tin is lift up a little bit here, wrap it around your roller, and gently pick up your dough. Look at that beauty. Okay, so now, let me just, now we're going to make it comfy in here. Be very, very gentle. You don't want any breakage in the pie crust. So just lift and tuck it into the creases. Okay, so once you've got the corners nicely in there, you're just going to cut off around the edge. I'm gonna do cute little waves. And it's okay to leave the dough hanging off a little bit, because we're gonna do the final cutting after it's baked. All right, and with the excess, you can go ahead and wrap it in saran wrap and then in foil. If you have a freezer-proof Ziploc bag, that would be perfect to throw it in as well. But honestly, saran wrap does the job. You can throw it into the freezer and use it again the next time you need it. It's gonna need a little bit of time to sit out in room temperature air, and it'll need a little bit of love and kneading before you use it again, if you do choose to put it in the freezer. But it should make another pie. So now we're going to put this into the oven for about 5 to 10 minutes, just to get it a little bit crispy before we put the filling in. And now we're going to pour the pie filling into the crust, and make sure to leave a little bit of room from the top, because it's going to expand as it cooks. So that should be good right here. Okay, so this pie is gonna cook at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. Then you're going to take it out, switch the temperature to 350 degrees, and then you're gonna cook for 30 to 45 minutes. Again, it's gonna be based on the depth of your pie and the thickness of your crust. The way that you'll know that it's ready is you'll be able to stick a fork into the middle, pull it out, and there won't be any residue on the fork. All right, so I really love how this pie crust turned out. This is how it should look, light brown on the edges, a couple pieces chipped off, but that's all right. So I've taken it out of the oven and given it a little bit of time to cool down, and I've cut a slice out. It's not the most beautiful slice, but I know it's gonna taste good. Definitely recommend this recipe. The crust is extremely firm, but not too crisp. All of the flavors are hitting at different times. It's honestly no regrets. No regrets. If you feel the same way, go ahead and leave us some comments down below and show us some love. But hope y'all have an amazing Thanksgiving, Christmas break, whatever, and make sure to wash your hands. And again, my name's Renee. This is my pumpkin pie recipe. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope y'all enjoy the pumpkin pie that this makes, and y'all have an amazing day.